I invite you to please set aside now whatever you have going on at the moment, your coffee cups, email messages, or thoughts about how you're going to get the fixings for tonight's supper. Just please be still for a moment. And as we enter into prayer, I'd like us to be mindful that we are relating to one, not a God out there somewhere who is controlling who gets viruses and doesn't, but a loving spirit who dwells deeply within each of us. One who was incarnated in Jesus to become intimately part of our very being. So it is to this one we pray. Holy and beloved God, we pray that your living presence will be the source of much needed strength for each of us during this very unique and unprecedented time. In particular, we hold our Maryknoll lay missioners in mind and heart. We trust that you will be the power of healing for Anne Berry's hands in her healthcare service of your loved ones. We pray that you will be the source of wisdom and courage for Heidi Cerneka as she accompanies and becomes the voice of and for your much loved immigrants and refugees. We hold in mind and heart Melissa Altman and all the members of her women's cooperative who are struggling for the basic necessities of life at this time of quarantine. Finally, it is with faith, hope, and deep love that we commend all of our missioners to your care as they continue to be the global presence of our U.S. Catholic faith community. And we make this prayer united with the incarnate one, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Bill. And now I'd like to introduce today's facilitator, Larry Rich. Larry Rich is a former Maryknoll lay missioner. He worked in media for Maryknoll for over 30 years. He served in Peru for 12 years, from 1981 to 1993. After returning to the United States, Larry became executive producer of Maryknoll Productions. He oversaw the production of more than 24 documentary films on issues of peace and justice and mission, including the 1995 Oscar-nominated Schools of Assassins, as well as both English and Spanish language weekly radio shows. Larry produced 2 nationally aired television series, The Field Afar and My Americas. Currently, Larry is the editor of Cygnus Media, the quarterly publication of the World Catholic Association for Communication. Larry also mentors young Catholic media professionals. Larry holds master's degrees in theology from Xavier University and in communications from Marquette University. He lives in Ossining with his spouse, Susan Weissert, also a former lay missioner, and they have an adult daughter, Michaela. Larry will introduce, after he speaks with you, he'll introduce the lay missioner panelists, and he will conduct the question and answers thereafter. Larry?
Thank you very much, Leslie, for that perhaps overly generous introduction. I just would like to say how honored I am to be able to speak with all of you and be able to help connect you with three of our wonderful missioners working during this difficult time. Sorry, just a kind of a housekeeping note. Pardon me. That during the course of our conversation today, if questions come to your mind that you'd like to ask the one of the three missioners, please make use of the chat, which is on the lower part of your screen. If you want to pose a question, just write it in on the chat and send it. It'll go to everyone. That's okay. All right. Okay, I'd like to introduce our friends, lay missioners in at the border, in El Salvador, and in Tanzania. First, I'd like to introduce Heidi Cerneka. Heidi is currently working in El Paso, working with serving immigrants in detention on the U.S. border who are asylum seekers. She spent 20 years working in Brazil in women's prisons, which led her to seek a law degree, which she did receive about 2 years ago. And she went then to serve in Kenya with incarcerated women, and then returned and is now in her current mission at the U.S. border. Melissa Altman, who has a background in communications and educational counseling, and worked in a high school campus ministry in the United States, is currently serving in Zaragoza, El Salvador, in a sustainable development project with a women's co-op. She's there with her husband, Peter, and their two children, Elijah and Evangelina. And Berry is a family physician who actually lived overseas in her earlier teen years, served as a Jesuit volunteer in Nicaragua. She's currently working in Mwanza, Tanzania, at a health clinic for reproductive and children's health. She's there with her spouse, George, who we see here, who is also a doctor, and their daughters, Susana and Luisa. Okay, so we'd like to begin our discussion today with Heidi Cerneka. Heidi, could you give us a snapshot of what your work was like at the border before the pandemic?
Sure. So I work with an immigrant advocacy center, and my part of the job is working with people that are in immigration detention, asking for asylum. So I visit the detention center. I work with people that have asylum cases to present them, to prepare them, and present them before the judge. And because the rate of asylum approval is so much lower in El Paso than it is in the rest of the country. For example, if you ask for asylum in New York, you have over 80% chance of getting approved. If you ask for asylum in Texas, you have about a 5% chance of getting approved. We also work really hard to get people out of detention so that they can go wherever their family or loved one is and seek asylum wherever they are. So that was pretty much what I was doing.
And now, how have things changed? Or have they changed?
A lot. We also believe strongly that nobody should be in detention if they come to this country asking for protection. That doesn't make sense. We're putting people in jail because they're asking for protection. So once the COVID-19 really kind of took hold, first of all, our offices closed, so we're all working from home. And we've been doubling down, trying to get people out of detention, because not only is detention not right because they're asking for protection, but now it also creates risk for them because people are in a situation that they can't get away from. And as we know, hospitals, shelters, and jails are places that are high risk for infections. So now we're working extra hard just trying to get people out of detention to somewhere safer.
Well, there's a lot to be concerned about in what you just said. But right now, what's your biggest concern about COVID-19 and the situation of the people there?
Really, I mean, my biggest concern, bigger than what I do, is also that our office works with people that are in the Remain in Mexico program over on the Juarez side. And so those people have had their hearings just stopped. And so they're stuck in Juarez, which is not their home, where they don't feel safe. And we get reports that they're going hungry. Again, all people that came here to ask for protection from the US because of something that happened to them in their own home country. My biggest concern right now here is that despite everything that we know about COVID-19, we are asking for release for people often and getting no's. And I actually said at work the other day, I thought, well, you know, on a virtual work meeting, I pretty much feel like if we ask for somebody to be released, the criteria should be really fast. It should be, are you a serial killer? No. Okay, let's let you go. To which one of my colleagues responded, let's let the serial killers go too. Like, detention is not a safe place for people. So my biggest concern right now is that.
And overall, you've had a lot of experience. You've been, worked in women's prisons in Brazil, and in Kenya as well. And you've seen a lot in your time now at the border. But so there are many things I'm sure that have had an impact on you along the way. How has the current situation and what you're seeing and feeling going on around you, how has that impacted or perhaps even changed you as missioner or given you a new perspective?
So much of my work is conducted by telephone now, for one thing, and I think my application for law school, I actually started it by saying that I think I was born with an extra "it's not fair" gene. And working here as a Maryknoll missioner in the U.S. affords me much more opportunity in a lot of ways to be critical and to say, like, this is just wrong, and we have all the resources and capacities to do this differently. It's a choice not to do it differently. And so, I think personally, the part of trying to negotiate feeling a lot of frustration and anger at policies that just don't make sense. But I think the other piece is just all the time that I've carried with me of working with women in prison in different places and stuff. I find that working with people by telephone, like the clients are just calling us on our phones now because that's the only access they have to us. And it's very clear to me that not only is my job here legal, like trying to get them out of detention, trying to guarantee that even though we're having hearings by telephone, guarantee that they actually have a fair hearing and access to a just and legitimate asylum case. The part of my job is letting them know that we're here and letting them know they're not abandoned. I have a 60-year-old client who's high risk, of course, partly by age. She's identified at high risk. And again, if you're in a situation like detention where you're completely impotent to change the situation, you can't be like, okay, I quit, I don't want to play the game anymore. You're stuck. Your immunity, your anxiety increases, your immunities go down, which advances your risk. And so I was talking to her the other day on the phone, and she was crying, which she does often. And she said to me, I don't want to die in here. And I said to her, Mariela, you are not going to die in detention. And it was clear to me that comes out of a justice perspective and a faith perspective. And of course, I didn't know for sure, but clarity that part of my job is giving those people the courage to keep going when they're not feeling it.
Wow, that is something we all struggle, I hope, to do ourselves. Thank you, Heidi. Again, if you have questions for Heidi or any of the other panelists, just write them down on chat. I don't know if I need to give more clear instructions on that, but anyway, that's the story on that. So let's turn now to further south to Melissa Altman in Zaragoza, El Salvador. How are you doing, Melissa, today?
Good. Thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about life in El Salvador.
Well, we're very happy that we can do that with you. First of all, you as we mentioned in the introduction, your work has been with women, trying to earn a living via co-op. Now with COVID-19, what's the situation?
Yeah, so my days looked very different before COVID-19. I spent my days at the cooperative doing administrative support, planning workshops, basically working with the women, keeping in mind that all of our members have lived through a brutal civil war. So that causes a lot of trauma. So things like conflict resolution and basic communication is always something that we're continually working on. So that was my basic day. Now, after the COVID-19, the cooperative has closed. We're not allowed to work right now. I keep in contact, just as Heidi had said, a big part of my job is accompanying them and letting them know that I'm here. I can't physically be present with them, but it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And most recently, we've organized to make masks. Many of the members have sewing machines at home, and this is giving them an opportunity to not only be productive and feel like they're doing something, which a lot of us feel like we're not doing anything or a lot, which also builds confidence and helps each of us with our mental health to get through this. So I've helped to organize that program. And also most recently, when talking to many of the members, basically they're running out of food. Their daily job is working at the cooperative, and that's how they earn a living. And they can't do that. They can't go there to work. So just as many of the different small businesses in the United States, they're not receiving their salary. So it's really all about food security right now. So I've already organized one round of food baskets, rice, beans. We're not talking about anything crazy. We're talking about rice, beans, oil, sugar, coffee, pasta, things like that, to try to get out to the members because they don't know where their next meal is coming from. So it's crazy how in only 6 weeks, how my ministry has just completely changed to one of our most basic needs, and that's food, which is something that not just my ministry here at the cooperative, but also my other fellow Maryknoll missioners here in El Salvador. All of us have switched from our usual, ministries to really worrying about food security and how will people get their next meal. So that's been a lot of what I've been doing after COVID-19.
Well, thank you for giving us that pretty real picture. And indeed, that often happens. We go into mission with thinking we were going to do one thing, and history changes things, life changes.
Absolutely.
You have to be open to that. Now, you're there with two children. And
Yes.
I know from my own experience, being in mission with a child requires, I guess we would say, adjustments. Could you tell us a little about your family's experience, and especially now in the light of the pandemic?
Sure. We moved to El Salvador in January of 2014. At that time, our son was 7 and our daughter was 3.5. And I would say being a family in mission has been one of the biggest privileges and blessings that I could have received. We have experienced so many crazy things and positive things, but I would say one thing about having a child in mission is you give that child, and we've given our children the ability to adapt in our ever-changing world. They have the ability to walk into a house in the middle of the country with dirt floors, bamboo roof, and feel completely comfortable as if they were in a regular, brick home. And that's something that I feel like we have been able to experience as a family. And there's not really many mission groups out there that allow that to happen. And so I feel like we have been able to experience mission in a different way because of our kids. And also too, like our kids are kind of, they give us opportunities to connect with people, talk with people. So although that has changed since COVID-19, I will say that being that they have been able to be flexible and adaptable, they also have been able to adapt to this new reality that we're living because of the experiences that they have already had in these past 6 years as being missioners.
Yeah, and how do you have? Do they have computer access?
Yes, we do. We have computer access, and my son was just complaining about how he was annoyed that he had 3 classes this week and they changed it and he didn't understand why. But no, everybody's doing just fine in school and we're managing. And the truth is, for me as a mom, I've been able to be a little bit more part of my child's education, my younger daughter, Evie. And that's also a different facet of life that's been a blessing. So I think if we all just sort of, take a moment and look at those different blessings that we have received. I mean, this pandemic is not a great thing, but we also need to look at what are the things that we have in front of us? What are the opportunities that we have? And those blessings and those graces. So,
yeah, as Pope Francis said, it's forcing us to look at what's really important.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One final question, and it kind of relates a bit to being there with a family with young children. A lot of nonprofits and Peace Corps have ordered their staff back home. What's your situation been as a Maryknoll lay missioner?
One thing that I, again, have felt really blessed with is we were able to make a decision for ourselves. We were allowed to say whether or not that we would like to stay in country or go back to the United States. And personally for me, I'm really happy that we're able to stay here and weather through this storm with the Salvadorans, because I just think it means, I know that it's not all about me or any of us as missioners, but just again, that sense that, as soon as we're allowed to, and it's safe, and we're allowed to be with our communities, I'm going to be there. And there's something about that I can make that decision. Peter and I, as parents, can make that decision for our children. And that's very freeing to be a part of an organization that has allowed us to be able to decide what's truly best for us as a family. So I hope that our staying here gives hope And I think it does, and it shows solidarity, and it shows solidarity for me too, that my friends are, my co-op members are checking in on me, and I'm like, no, you don't have to check on me. How are you? And so there's something strong, a strong connection there that I really value. So.
Thank you so much, Melissa. The word hope certainly leapt into my mind before you used it there at the end.
We have to have hope.
Yes, we have to. So let's turn now to Tanzania, to Dr. Ann Berry. Ann, how are you?
Oh, hi, Larry. I'm fine. Thanks. How are you?
Good, good, good. What time is it there?
9:30, I guess.
In the evening.
Luckily,
Yeah.
Yeah, evening.
All right. Well, we'll try not to keep you up too late.
Thank you.
So, Ann, as a family physician, you daily deal with women who are, what we would say in the U.S., underserved, to put it mildly. But given that situation, are you worried about what the impact of COVID is going to be on them, given their already precarious situation?
Yes, I mean, definitely yes. I think, it goes without saying that probably like all the places we have missioners, the healthcare system here in Tanzania is not very strong. So that's one of the, the risks for everybody, particularly the poorest people, because they're depending on the least expensive parts of the health system, the government health system. So that's a challenge. But particularly what I see, the women and families that I serve in our community, where my husband and I work in the hospital, is that a lot of people are already very anemic or very malnourished, just chronically. There's just a lot of kind of ongoing, day-to-day insults to people's health. People who are living in small rural communities in Tanzania, like the one where we live. And when we first came, my husband, who's a pediatrician, and I were very surprised how often we would see a child or a woman with such low hemoglobin, very severe anemia, but otherwise they were just coming in for an ordinary checkup or something. They weren't that sick. And we realized, well, there's maybe poor access to food. That's always an issue. They don't have a lot of nutritious food that can give them good blood supply. Also, there's malaria that's always around, and malaria decreases your red blood supply. So every time you get malaria again, that's knocking that down again. Then there's other kinds of parasites that are present, like in the water supplies, that's not secure water supply, or even just in the soil, like hookworms, that also can cause kind of a chronic anemia. So, and what I see is young women, they're anemic and they're maybe underweight or malnourished before they have their first child. And then, when the mother is malnourished and anemic during pregnancy, then when the baby's born, he or she is already starting off life also behind because of mother, situation. So then it just continues, that child. So all these mothers and children who are chronically, not in the best of health, of course, this new coronavirus is going to hit them very hard, or I'm afraid it is. Here in Tanzania, like most of Africa, we're kind of the last, among the last, I guess, countries to get the full wave. So we're just seeing the upswing of cases right now. So we haven't had really, the full outbreak yet. So we don't know yet, but I'm afraid that, that the mothers and children who are already chronically malnourished and anemic are going to, have no reserve to fight this infection if they get it.
And you clearly live and work in immersed in this daily, because what you described to us shows, obviously a great deal of understanding as a medical professional of the situation, but also what it's doing to actual people, actual women. In the midst of that, where do you find hope?
Well, I mean, one thing that I really feel like in the 3.5 years that I've been here, that I've really noticed and learned in a way is to be more in touch with that, like as Father Bill was saying in the prayer, that divine, love that's within each of us, and it's our deepest identity. And whatever name people call that, I mean, many of our community members here are Muslims, so it's not that we're all sharing our faith traditions together, but it's more of a deeper sense of connection to a benevolent, loving, universal truth, whether you call it God or Allah or anything else. I just see that in people here, and I think, particularly the specific community where we work, which is a small rural community an hour outside the city where our family lives. People are not in control of much at all in their daily lives, or in their overall life. They're mostly subsistence farmers, so they're totally dependent on the rain. Does it come or does it not come? How do the crops grow? And they just go along with their lives with a kind of sense of hope and connection and something deeper, and not I feel like it makes me reflect on me and where I come from, that I've had a lot of time in my life where I feel like, yes, I'm in control. I'm a doctor, or I'm a smart person, I'm an educated person, I can take care of this, I'll handle this. But the truth is, none of us are really in control. And the people that my patients, my community at the hospital, they don't seem to really have that illusion. So they're just instead saying, well, Mungu yupo. People say Mungu yupo here, which means God is present. That's all it means. Just, okay, God is present. The divine is present. And I guess that's really given me it's almost like a paradigm shift for me, to see that, okay, yes, I try to do my small part, my small work each day, but I'm not in control any more than any of us. So there's something deeper, and somehow I can have my true hope in that. Not in the sense of an afterlife, but just in the sense of there's a deep love that connects all of us. And it's just something that maybe I'm not explaining it very well, but maybe you just have to, experience that and live where people are kind of living like that.
I think you explained it pretty well. And I think, and I hope most of us here today experience that love in the deepest sense that you're talking about it. One last question for you. Have to ask it, is the question about being a family in mission, and what's it like for you and George and the girls?
Well, it's thank you for asking. It's been really wonderful. I echo what Melissa said, that we chose Maryknoll Lay Missioners because we were so happy to become part of an organization that celebrates families as part of our mission community, and sends families in mission. And for our family, it's been an incredible experience. You mentioned in your introduction that I myself had the wonderful experience to live in different countries when I was growing up with my own parents and siblings. And I think part of it was, I thought, yeah, that was so wonderful, the chance to learn about a new culture, as Melissa said, to grow up being in different situations, learning how to adapt and to be, comfortable with different ways of being, different ways of living. So that I knew I wanted for my children, and that has definitely been part of our time here. But the other thing that has been, or I should say, and the other thing that's been so beautiful for me for our family and our kids especially is being part of the Maryknoll community, because it's this community, I mean, you know, of all these incredible people doing amazing things, but even more just like, I don't know, who they are, the way they live their lives, and try every day to live their lives in that kind of that love I was talking about, I guess. It's really very special. And I just for my kids to be part of that community and know all these people are lay missioners here in Tanzania, especially, of course. But even we have some Maryknoll priests, brothers and sisters also here in Tanzania that sometimes we get together with. So, I mean, that's just such a gift for my children to know all these wonderful, different and amazing, dedicated people. And I've really noticed it kind of in a new way during this, pandemic time, where my kids are now not going to school in person. Either they're doing their computer lessons also, so they don't have as much connection to their normal community. And we're not physically seeing necessarily or a lot of our Maryknoll community either, but we are still really in close touch with our Maryknoll community in different ways. And I just feel like I see for all of us as a family, but especially for my kids, to continue to see that the way that kind of community can work through a very difficult situation like this and support one another. They don't seem worried. They don't seem upset. And I think that's part of it. They see that we'll get through this because we're a community together. So yeah, it's fantastic to be a family in mission.
As a family, you're part of something much bigger than just your family. I think that's one of the things we learn, huh?
Yes.
So, thank you very much, Anne. And now we're going to turn to the questions, I believe. Is that correct? I gotta find them here. Let's see. There. Okay. I'll start with one question that appeared, and it's for Heidi. Heidi, are there many COVID cases in where you are at the border?
No, actually, that we know of. I mean, there are definitely cases.
Uh-huh.
I think El Paso has been working hard at, staying at home, and there are definitely cases in the detention centers. There's cases in the community, not the numbers we're hearing in other places. I also don't know how many tests there are. And over in Juarez,
Yes.
Again, I think there are many cases. I'm not sure the extent of testing, which is one of the issues.
I'm sorry, did you say you think there are many cases or there are not?
Well, I've heard there's many cases, but I have not seen numbers. I think there's not a lot of testing going on or testing available.
Mm-hmm.
And even that has been super complicated because, of course, the U.S. has pretty much closed the border to traffic, except there's people in asylum proceedings who are now told that their next hearing is in July, even though they've been here since November waiting in Juarez. And also just at this border community, of course, there are so many people. Mm-hmm. Really, one of the things I love about El Paso, sorry, this is a really long answer.
No,
one of the things I love about here is they call it the tri-state community. And the 3 states are New Mexico, Texas, and Chihuahua, Mexico. So they don't call it 2 countries, they call it 3 states. Mm-hmm. Because so many people live in both worlds. And so to close down that border causes people to be stuck away from family or away from community or away from work in a way that is very alarming. Mm-hmm. So that was a long answer to your question.
No, but it's it's good. It gives us a picture of what's going on, and we don't know if we don't hear from people like you. Um, Melissa, two questions. Are there many COVID cases in Zaragoza now? And the other question is, how many women are in the cooperative?
Sure. We have right now a total of 26 members in the cooperative. And right now, in the country of El Salvador, the whole country, there's 377 cases of COVID. And there are no cases in Zaragoza where I work. However, there are 20 cases in all the towns sort of surrounding where we are. So that's where we're at. And I don't know of any of our members. No one that has come up to my knowledge is sick, and also no family members of the cooperative members. So we're gonna pray that it stays like that.
And how many women are in the cooperative?
26.
26, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how many families would that mean in the end? You know, or that readily?
Well, like, as you know, in Latin America, we have a lot of extended families living in the, so we have many members. For example, my friend Isabel, she takes care of her elderly father and mother, and she also has her grandson living with her. So if you count, that's just one member, an example of how many people living under the same roof. So we're probably talking about 40 to 50 families kind of mixed. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it usually is more than one family per woman. This question is for Anne and Melissa. Maybe we could start with Anne. What do you think is the greatest lesson you have taught your children by having them grow up in mission?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I guess it remains to be seen because my children are still only 9 and 6. So hopefully we'll see what lessons they keep. But I think, gosh, it's hard to pick just one. I mean, I think one of the great lessons, and lesson that I learned myself growing up in other countries is just the lesson of the beauty of differences among people. That we all do things different ways and different, languages, of course, different cultures and all those things, and how exciting and interesting it is to learn about differences, different ways we do things, people do things all over the world. And at the same time, the oneness of being a person, and that you can be friends with people and, have things in common with people that are also very different from you. And that's also true. So it's kind of like the diversity and the unity. And I think that's a lesson that, you just learn when you have that opportunity. So it's an opportunity I'm so grateful I've been able to give to my kids that I also had.
Great. Melissa, how would you respond to that?
I think for me and Peter, we definitely wanted to raise our children in a different culture, learn another language, and also give them an opportunity to see the world outside of the United States lens, and really give them a sense of the way that maybe those who live on the margins live, and so that they would be able to see the world from a more worldly perspective. And my hope as a mom is that, when they grow up, that they'll find their own way using their gifts and talents to make the world a better place. And I think that's, something that I hope that they haven't, I hope they don't look back and say, man, mom and dad, you guys screwed us up. I hope they don't come back and say that. I don't think they will.
No.
But even Eli, our son, who's 13, he has a sense of the world, and he has a sense of how things work and the injustices. And he can see that as a 13-year-old. What a gift to be able to see that, vision as a young person. So that's what I think.
That's I know our experience with the daughter, just so something to look forward to, is they do, in normal course of things, reject us for a period of time, but then
Yeah.
then they come back and they really like us. So it worked for us, at least. Anyway, well, thank you very much. Thank you, Melissa and Anne, for giving us some real insight into, I think, something a lot of people ask themselves. Um, I'm not sure how we're doing on time here. Do we have time for one more question, or should we move on? I guess. Okay. There's one last question. All right, for all three of you. This was, somebody submitted this. What are you learning during the pandemic which will carry you into your future, quote, normal mission activities? I'm going to put, because of time, I'm going to limit each of you, and I should have done this at the beginning, just one sentence, maybe two. Okay. We should have like one of those timers on a game show. You know? That's a hard question. I mean, what's been the biggest thing you've learned? Would you say that might be a simpler way to put it?
Hate those superlatives, the biggest.
All right.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I just think new ways of being team. You know, I'm so grateful that I work on a team, because this has been really, really hard to keep getting denied. But I work with a bunch of other people who are in the fight together and trying to make this work. And if I had to add one more thing, Adobe Pro. I learned how to use Adobe Pro.
Okay.
I was forced to use Adobe Pro.
They are sponsoring this, aren't they?
I know. I didn't mean to do product placement.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Melissa or Anne?
Yeah, I think that although we're not physically able to be present, I think I have learned that we can be present to each other through technology, through phone calls, and getting back to that solidarity with each other, not just our families in the States, but the people with whom we work. And I think that's something that I'm going to carry through, and that flexibility to see what happens next. I don't know what my ministry is going to look like in the future. So whatever that is, I really want to embrace the flexibility and the solidarity of continuing that relationship and the accompaniment that I have with the people in whom I work with.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Anne.
Well, I will say the one thing that I've learned that kind of surprised me was that a lot of people are really interested and really supportive of what we're doing or trying to do. And I don't know, I've always felt like, you know, I'm not doing anything that, you know, other doctors aren't doing, just taking care of sick people, you know. But it's been really, really amazing to me that, you know, just the one little blog piece that I wrote, and a few messages I've sent to people, and I've just been really amazed by people's responses. I mean, my, like, you know, friends, family, mostly back in the United States, although people, actually even people who are my friends on Facebook, you know, that I know here or other places, people are so supportive, people that I hadn't heard from in a long time or haven't seen in a long time, just sending really nice messages of support, you know, how can we help, or we're praying for you and your community, your patients. And I guess to say what I will carry forward into whatever my ministry, you know, looks like in the future, is just to remember to keep just sharing my experiences and telling stories, my family's stories, the stories of the communities that I'm working with and my coworkers, because I've learned that, you know, people like to hear them, and they're really supportive. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And thank all three of you, Heidi and Melissa and Anne. The time went too quickly. I know there are a lot of questions that were popping up on chat that we did not have time to answer. And in a couple of minutes, we're going to give you a chance to follow up on that if you would like.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Anne, Melissa, and Heidi. On this slide, you have the missioners and Larry's email address. Please feel free, for those who still have continuing questions or would like to reach out and speak to them, communicate with them, please feel free to do so. Wow. I just kept saying, wow. Thank you so much. That was extraordinary. Thank you for opening our eyes, our hearts to the importance of mission, working with those at the margin for a more just and compassionate and sustainable world, the importance of service, transforming lives, of believing, and what you heard over and over and over again, hope. Thank you. You know, I was also thinking this is the time when, if our missioners were conducting a church talk, after such a rich and insightful message from our missioner, the priest may stand up and raise his hand and he would say, "Church, say amen," and they'd respond. And then they would proceed and pass the basket for a second collection to support our Maryknoll lay missioners. Well, we cannot conduct a church talk because we're sheltering in place. We cannot pass the basket for contributions because we're sheltering in place. What we are doing is we're continuing our mission, the mission of Jesus, both locally and globally. What we are doing is conducting virtual gatherings, like Melissa just said, being present to each other. And we're telling our stories, sharing real-time experiences, incredible people doing amazing things, like Anne said, but we cannot do it alone. We sincerely need your prayers and your financial contributions. And now we really need your help to reach the $12,000 match challenge. So please, if you are so moved, those are two ways to support. Going to our website, click the donate, call me. That's my cell number. Talk to me. I'd love to talk to you. And I look forward to hearing from you. Also on that page, you have we invite you to learn more about the Maryknoll Office of Global Concerns, our sister organization located in Washington, D.C. The challenge match is good from now, starting today, April 29th, all the way to the end of May. So thank you for helping with that. As we're getting ready to conclude, may the blessing of hope be with you always. And thank you for joining us. Thank you.